We're told that the apostles Peter and John spoke with parresia, with boldness. There is a lot of need, I think, in our day to speak the gospel with boldness. I think Pope Francis certainly sort of emphasized this in his own preaching and in his own life, that ultimately we cannot propose so much a culture or an artwork. We have to propose Christ with boldness. We have to be convinced that people will be happier if they live as Christian disciples than if they don't. Right? That despite all of the sort of allure of the world and all the temptations, the fact is that in every way, living as a faithful Christian disciple is better off than if we don't. Right? And that is both in terms of the faith that we profess and that we hold to, and that becomes the anchor of our lives in which we hope for God's promises of eternal life, and but also, right, that faith which is then lived out in deeds and in actions. Even those elements of the moral life that may be controversial or difficult for people to hear, and we all have aspects in one way or another. The different parts of the Christian teaching are difficult for different people at different times. But the fact is, it is that boldness of the apostles, precisely because they are simple, uneducated men. Right? These are not the great orators or the great doctors. In fact, one of those men we find in the gospel going to Jesus. Nicodemus, Jesus will eventually refer to as the teacher of Israel. Nicodemus has this sort of Billy Graham characteristic to him, right? He seems to be like the popular, influential, important rabbi at that time in Israel. But Nicodemus is going to Jesus secretly at night, wanting to understand who he is and the mystery of what it means to be born from above. Right? And so it is not, in fact, the powerful or important who move history. It is rather the simple and educated people like Peter and John who with parresia live out and preach with boldness the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead. And so we ask the Lord to help us to live out the same boldness today in our own families and communities, knowing how much so many people need to hear this message of salvation.